Hi guys, Lindsay here with Storybook Family Farm. So today we finally got the garden weeded, so I figured I'd bring you guys along to give you guys a brief tour of how everything's going, where everything's at, and since things are no longer just little seeds hiding underneath the soil, I figured it'd be a good time to show you guys what we have growing on, and just sort of what our thoughts are about how things are going this year as compared to last year. So as you guys know, last year was our first year on this homestead property, so things were kind of a really rocky, rough start, especially with trying to get a garden established when we'd only owned the place for like a month before trying to plant things. So kind of crazy last year. So I'm standing right now at the gate of the garden area. So as per usual, we will start on this side here with where all of our tomatoes are at. So we have piles of weeds in the walkway here because we literally just weeded the garden this morning. Having two people to work on it makes it a lot faster than just one. But so our plans for the weeds that are in the garden here right now in the walkways, there's a lot of really hot weather coming in the next week or so, and it's been very, very dry. So we have the piles of weeds actually sitting in the walkway here to dry out just a little bit. Because this evening then what we're going to do is put the dead dried weeds in between like the tomato plants and different plants of that nature to try to serve as a mulch to try to conserve the moisture because we did water after we got done weeding. That should help with the extremely high temperatures that are coming in the next week. I live in Ohio, so for us it's going to be, I think there's like 3 days of like 93, 94 degrees, and that is unheard of for mid-June. Like that's some of the hottest temperatures we normally get throughout the entire summer. And yeah, it's kind of, in my whole 32 years of life, I don't recall ever having that hot of temperatures in June. So you know, somebody else might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall having that many hot days. So anyways, back to the garden. So over in here we actually have all of our cherry tomato plants. So our tomatoes are getting pretty tall and getting nice thick stems, which is something that we really look for to see the health of the plant. If they're really spindly, chances are they're not getting the things that they need. So then in this area down in here, we have a bunch of radishes coming up. I did sow radishes and carrots together because they are companion plants. However, in this patch right in here, for some reason, I did not find any carrots coming up. But as we come down further and come into this area here where it's more of like slicer tomatoes and things of that nature, you can tell that the soil is evidently better on this portion over here because things are much better in terms of the radishes, and there also is a whole bunch of little carrot starts coming up. I'll try to show you guys. It is very sunny, so I can't see very well today, but it is what it is. So all of our tomatoes are doing really well. We have several tomatoes on different plants. But we also have, you know, various different tomato plants here that have a nice thick stalk coming up, and they're just very happy, very healthy, especially since they're going to drink water. And then our beans are doing well, which I'll show you guys them in a second. Over here we have some of our little okra babies that are coming up. They are about, I'd say about 3 or 4 inches tall, some of them are. So we just direct sowed them. Normally for our climate we would start them ahead of time, but this year, due to being so under the weight of all of the projects that we've been working on, we did not have time to sow stuff ahead of time. So we actually just sort of direct sowed it a little bit early in the season, hoping for the best and really crossing our fingers because a packet of seeds really is not that expensive. So Tracy put multiple okra seeds in each little hole that we dug, and we are probably going to have a lot of okra to preserve this year. So which isn't a bad thing because pickled okra is actually really delicious. So in our sweet peppers, they are doing very well. I'll show you guys them. Some of them even have little peppers on them and stuff. As you guys will see, there are plenty of weeds still in the garden. When we weed the garden, we do not pick out every single last little one because if you plant things closer together, kind of like how I have these pepper plants really not that far apart from each other, they will eventually shade out all of the weeds. So then that way the weeds can't really survive. So you basically just have to weed it down enough with kind of minimal effort. So then that way the plants that you desire are able to grow up taller and overcome the pressure of the weeds. then eventually they'll choke the weeds out. So it's kind of a nice thing to do. So back behind me, you'll see kind of what looks on camera as a big weedy mess. Back in there, we have along all of these fence lines here, and then here, and so on and so forth. There are a bunch of different winter squashes planted and some volunteer sunflowers. So those are all doing well. It'd be really kind of difficult for me to show you guys because on camera, it is very hard to see and tell what plants are what. So it's kind of a not super exciting part of the garden tour, I suppose. But so our bush beans are doing well. We have had issues with slugs. So this is actually the second planting of bush beans that we have done this year, because the first planting that I did, these slugs literally destroyed all of it. So I unleashed the ducks and the geese in the garden for about a week. So they did kind of trample some things down, and we did had to completely replant all of the beans, but it made it so that way there's a big dent in the slug population. So hopefully this year won't be like last year where we had pretty much no harvest because the slugs had all of the harvest. So that's kind of one of the biggest struggles that we've had on this property. Is I think this year is going to be one of the greatest assets that we had. This property has always been a pretty wet property the entire time we've owned it. And this year definitely seems like it's going to be a very hot, dry year. So that's going to definitely be a big perk of living here, is that the ground's pretty wet. The water table is pretty high here, so it shouldn't, hopefully we shouldn't have to water the garden a too terribly lot amount. And hopefully that won't be too big of a problem for us. But so the bush beans are all coming in nicely. And then we have some lima beans did not germinate that are growing up on this trellis here. So I will have to, after I'm done filming, I will have to replant a few lima beans because we had a pretty poor germination rate, which I don't know if it's because I'm using older seeds or if it's, you know, the slugs or what. That's the nice thing about seeds is they don't actually ever expire. They just lose germination rates. So they just become a little less effective in sprouting it the older that they get. So, I mean, I was planting seeds that I had saved from my garden in 2021. So they've been around the block for a while. But so our hot peppers are doing pretty well. We have some that are really, these ones here, I don't know if you guys will even be able to see them, but they're very, very small little plants over in here. They all came from a different greenhouse. They are riding the struggle bus pretty badly. So I'm not really sure what's going on with them, if maybe they were just more root bound than others. I don't know. I broke all of the roots up. I did all the same things, planted them in the same type of soil, did all the same things with them, and they're really struggling. So the next ones up, they're doing well. They have peppers on them a little bit, and then up even further, we have our personal favorites. These are the chili poblano peppers, and as you guys can see, they are, you know, pretty tall, nice looking little plants. So they're doing well. And then all of our brassicas are doing well, which we usually do a pretty good job with the brassicas. It's kind of our favorites. Beans and brassicas are our thing. But so we have kale growing up the center here, and then on the sides here we have kohlrabi on this side and some purple kohlrabi on that side. And then as you guys will see, some of the stuff looks like it's a little wilted just because it is already like 80 degrees out today and it's very sunny. And then here we have cabbages, and then down further there are some broccolis, and then along the sides here, if you guys can see the tall spiky things sticking up, those are leeks that are going to seed that we planted last year. It is getting really hot standing in the sun here. But so then along this fence line here, which I'm back by the garden gate again, this fence line here, we have a whole bunch of different summer squashes and zucchinis planted. They are coming up really well. They're doing very well. They look very happy and very healthy. And I planted something that is called a snake gourd. The other name is a cucuzzi zucchini. There's cucuzzi squash or something like that. Anyways, it's these big, long squash type things. They can get up to like 5 foot long, and they're cylindrical. They're about that big to that big around. They taste really good, especially like in a stir fry type thing. I tried planting seeds last year for them, and none of them germinated. This year I planted seeds in several different places and I only have one coming up. So I definitely am going to have to get new seeds or try to save seeds this year. Thankfully they are in the gourd family, so I don't have to worry about them cross-pollinating with, you know, the squashes that are right here, because here is the snake gourd plant. So I won't have to worry about them cross-pollinating because they have very different flowers. They're not the same species. They can't cross-pollinate with each other. So any seeds that I get from that snake gourd plant are going to be the only gourd type plant that is planted here. So it should be true to seed since it's an heirloom. So I'm pretty jazzed about that because the seeds for them are expensive. There's very little in the pack, and good to have your own source, especially too because the animals really like them, and if you let them cure on the vine, then they'll actually stay good in the basement like all winter long, and like goats and chickens and things go crazy for them. So then along this fence line here, I actually planted the whole way down. There is still summer squashes and zucchinis and stuff this entire way here, and that stuff, like I said, it's all doing well. So I also have some pole beans that are planted along the fence here. They had a pretty spotty germination because I also was planting seed that I saved from, like, I don't know if it was 2020 or 2021. So I have to plug in some more seeds in different spots where things did not come up. And some of it too is also slug damage, and also our pesky turkeys. Anywhere that the fence is weeded at really well, like over in here, then they will actually stick their heads in through here and try to nibble on plants. So like by the tomatoes over there, I very much intentionally left it so there was a big wall of grass right along the edge there, just so then that way we can get more tomatoes. Because the turkeys, man, once they find tomatoes, like, they go crazy for our tomatoes and stuff. They'll actually just stand there by the fence and just pick, pick, pick. Like, we didn't get very many cherry tomatoes last year because they realized where the cherry tomatoes were at, and that was like their whole jam because they could pull the entire thing off of the plant and just go ham on it. So yeah, we got a good bit of the pole beans up in here. So over in this area, I'm not really gonna plug in any more pole beans because they are a Kentucky Wonder type of pole bean. So they are going to really trellis on this fence like crazy and be quite prolific. But in some of the spots where it's more bare, I'm going to experiment with some beans. They're called the Cherokee Trail of Tears. So in the spots that there's not any beans at all that came up, I'm going to put them there and mark it down as to which spot and section I have different varieties of beans, so that way I can figure out and look and observe how well they grow in the soil to see if maybe a different variety would fare better. This is what happens when I'm in the sun. It gets very hard for me to focus on what I'm trying to say, what my words are, and I get very distracted because all I can think about is my pasty skin is burning. But anyways, so I want to try to experiment with different varieties to see if maybe a different variety can do better in our climate and in our soil. The Kentucky Wonders, I've always had a good experience with them in terms of being able to produce a lot of beans, but they are harder for me to snap because they are a very stringy bean. They have a very thick string on them. So how I snap beans is very unusual. I think because of my years of working in factories, I can do it with both hands, like simultaneously, almost like piecework from a machine. So with one hand, I'll snap the ends off of both sides, like at the same time, because I got them Ehlers-Danlos fingers going on that I can just be like boop, 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 boop. And then with the other hand, I will pass the bean to the other hand and I'll snap it in all the places that it needs snapped, like over top of the bowl, and just drop it. So like I can watch TV and just boom, 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 like really fast. And the Kentucky Wonder beans are very difficult to do that because if you don't pick them very young, which makes it so they're harder to snap because they're more flexible, if you wait till they're older and easier to snap, then you have the big strings, so then you keep getting caught up on these strings. But they're really prolific, so I'm trying to find a bean that is as prolific but doesn't have the string problem, that is also an heirloom. So if you guys have suggestions for me, definitely let me know in the comment section, so that way for next year I can try to get my hands on some of those bean seeds to try to play with them a lot. The bush bean seeds that we have, they are the Blue Lake bush beans, which those ones work really well for my method of snapping, but they're not an heirloom, so it kind of makes it so it's hard because then you have to always perpetually buy more seed, which isn't that big of a deal, I suppose, but I'm a sucker for saving seeds to be able to just keep regrowing and being really cheap and not have to keep buying. So that's it for today. It is really super toasty. All of our, in the one bed over here where my hand is sort of pointing at, there are different, I'll show you guys, there are different root vegetable crops that are growing in there, and they are all, we started them off from seeds, so they're very, very tender, gentle little babies. So we have some beets in here. These are a mixed pack. I don't know if you guys will be able to tell or not, but there's some yellowish looking ones and some red ones in here. And then up here some rutabagas, and then down here some turnips, and then down further is different type of turnips and some more beets. So everything is coming up that we planted. You know, some stuff we're gonna obviously have to plug in more seeds in different places, but it is what it is. It's kind of what happens when you're growing a garden is, you know, not everything has a perfect germination rate, and that's okay because a pack of seeds really isn't that expensive, especially if you saved them yourself, because then they're free. So yeah, if you guys are enjoying this content, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends on social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to help us grow. We'd greatly appreciate it. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.